Just try to read. Good morning, everyone. And today we are going to discuss the question answers, the in-text question answers, as well as the exercise question answers. And after that, you are supposed to upload the PDF. Make sure that the PDF is readable and it's not blurred. The diagrams must be drawn with the help of pencil only, and it must be clear. The labeling must be very, very clear. Starting off with the first question, why is it diffusion insufficient to meet oxygen requirements of multicellular organisms like us? Page number 95. Anybody would like to reply to that? Why is it this diffusion is not actually sufficient for all of us, you and me and all the complex organisms, including the higher plants? Why diffusion is insufficient? Anyone? Well,
Okay.
Yeah, sure, Sadhna, tell me.
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am, in human beings, all the body cells are not in contact with the surroundings. So therefore, every cell of the body to get the oxygen, we don't require the diffusion. We require a proper organ
And moreover,
system
we know
for
that
respiration.
diffusion is a local process, localized process, and diffusion won't be sufficient to fulfill the energy requirement, the oxygen requirement of a complex organism like that of us. Okay, the energy need is too much. Yes, that's what the answer should be. And then question number 2, what criteria do we use to decide whether something is alive? This is a very, very simple question. Like in the junior classes also, we have read about the symptoms, you can say, the indications that something is alive. What makes us alive? Anyone?
Ma'am, can I?
Yeah, Manali.
The major criteria.
Yeah, Manali. You
The
do
major
one thing. You may
criteria-
raise your hand. Yeah, of course. I know you know the answer. Yeah, Manali, I have given you the chance for this question. And for everybody else, of course, I would say that next question onwards, you may raise your hand. So accordingly, I can call upon your name. Yeah, Manali, proceed.
The major criteria which is used to decide whether something is alive is movement. Movement be that of locomotion, movement of a part or breathing movements, growth movements, and movement of solvent molecules, and
Okay.
also the
Any other?
maintenance of the body in the repair and the cellular structures.
Correct. Anybody else? Anybody else? That means only movement we can consider that that's an indication of being alive.
Ma'am, can I?
What about respiration? What about digestion?
All.
Yes, Epsita. Epsita.
Ma'am.
Can you hear me, Epsita?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, tell me. Yeah, tell me
Ma'am,
your reply.
non-living things can't perform life processes like respiration, reproduction, and utilization of energy and metabolism, while living things can perform all of these life processes, and
Yes.
non-living things can't divide themselves on their own. So that's the criteria we can decide whether something is living or non-living.
Yes, yes, yes. I'm getting the answer from Ritika, Sadhna, and of course, Ipsita has just told me. See, it's a combination of all the life processes. 4 life processes are mentioned in lesson number 6 itself. We have covered. That is nutrition, respiration, circulation, and excretion. Then, of course, nervous control, the control and coordination, reproduction, growth. All these are the symptoms, you can say, or the symbols that an organism or something is alive. Next question now we are going to take up. What are outside raw materials used for by an organism? Ritika has raised the hand for that. Yeah, Ritika.
Outside raw materials provide energy to organisms to maintain their body processes. They are needed to prevent damage and breakdown in the body.
Correct. But what are those materials they are saying? What are those materials that are required? Can we name them? A few of them. Yeah, food, oxygen.
Ma'am, can I?
Food, oxygen, water. That answer I got. And now let's move ahead. I would like all the kids to participate equally. 3 to 4 kids are only naming here. So please, let's see the next question. What processes would you consider essential for maintaining life? Again, all the life processes we have just named. We're not going to repeat that here. All the processes we have just named, right from nutrition and of course digestion, then respiration, circulation, excretion, and
Transportation.
yeah, transportation, Vandan is right. Control and coordination, reproduction, growth, all of them. Okay, so all these life processes, they make a living being alive, you can say. Then after that, we have next set of questions on page number 101. Yeah, Sadhana is right in that aspect also. Now the next is for page number 101. We have next set of in-text questions. And in that, the first one is, what are the differences between autotrophic and heterotrophic? A favorite, most, and a simple question.
The autotrophic in the autotrophic nutrition
Ma'am, can I?
organism.
Wait, let me see the raised hands queue. Okay, and I'll try to give the chance to the kid who has not responded till now. Himanshu,
Yes, ma'am.
yeah, answer that.
Ma'am, in autotrophic nutrition, organisms synthesize their own food in the presence of sunlight or air.
Good. And what heterotrophic would be?
In a heterotrophic nutrition, they depends on another organism for their food.
Correct. Correct. So autotrophs, of course, we know very well the best example for autotrophs, and the only you can say is the example is the green plants. And heterotrophs, all other, including us, you, me, and all the animals, because we depend for food on them. Now, there was this question when I was discussing this concept in a younger class, in a lower class. Basically, the mothers cook food in kitchen. Then how come we say that we depend on them for our food? We are making our own food, be it this chapati, this rice or milk and whatever. We actually are making the food. Then how come we are saying that we are depending on them? Any reply to that?
Because the
raw
raw materials we
material
are
is made
getting
by
from
Yes, Kushagra. I would again say that if a question is put up, please raise your hand. No problem. Very good. Kushagra is right. Kushagra, complete your answer.
Ma'am,
Kushagra,
because
your
the
answer.
raw materials are produced by plants, so we just take them from plants and
Yes.
use it as our needs.
Yeah, of course. See, basically, we are getting the food items from plants only. Even if you are drinking milk or you are eating paneer, an animal product, animal has gained that food from plants only. Yeah, of course. The answers from Sadhana and Manali are also right. Let's move ahead with the next question now. Where does the plant get each raw material required for photosynthesis? Now, here I'm going to write down these materials and let's see them one by one. That's question number 2 on that page. For example, we say this is CO2 is needed, H2O is needed. These are the like raw materials. Okay. And of course,
Sunlight.
Sunlight, chlorophyll.
minerals.
okay, I can see my enthusiastic kids,
Chlorophyll.
but again, please raise your hands. Please raise your hands. Okay. And I could hear a boy's voice also in the middle, and who was that? I don't know. The kid has not raised the hand. And again, time and again, I'm getting these names. So, yeah, Vandan, try to give me the answer to all the 3. Okay. Here, these 3 raw materials the plants need to make their food. And of course, sunlight they get from sun. I'm not going to ask you that. Carbon dioxide.
Atmosphere.
Atmosphere or air itself. Yeah, of course. And what about water?
Roots.
Roots. Now tell me one thing. If a plant is growing in water, submerged completely in water, then what about CO2? From where the plant is going to get CO2? Twisted.
Ma'am, what?
If a plant is growing completely submerged in water, there are plants which are free floating.
They use dissolved oxygen. Sorry, CO2.
Yes, CO2. CO2 and oxygen, they have a very great affinity towards water. They can remain dissolved in water. Okay, so in that case of the plants, but in general terms, we'll always say that CO2 the plants will get from air and water and minerals, of course, from the soil. Yeah, good. Next question now. What is the role of acid in our stomach? Please think for 1 minute. Because I gave you 2 roles and there is one more role.
Ma'am, can I?
Wait. Wait a minute. Let me see the name of the kids here. And I would like to ask the child who has not answered till now.
Ma'am,
Ritika, Himanshu, wait, mera bacha. Wait. Manisha.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, try to answer this question.
It also kills any bacteria entering the stomach along with the food.
Correct?
It makes medium inside the stomach acid, which is necessary for the activation of enzyme called pepsin.
Correct. So we know these two. And see, when the students, they start responding after the explanation of the chapter, we may become a bit greedy. Now I want you people to tell me the third point also. This is our question number 3.
It converts inactivate
And
pepsin into activate pepsin.
ma'am, it makes the acidic medium.
One by one, my child. Yeah.
It makes acidic medium.
Correct. These writing on the board to avoid any sort of confusion. First one makes the medium acidic. Right. Correct. Got it. Makes medium acidic. Kills harmful bacteria. Any idea about the third one? Basically, these two are the functions. But there is a third one also. Would you like to try for that?
Acidify the food.
Digestion, yes, for the digestion of the food. And of course, it helps in preventing the decaying of food in the stomach. Stomach is a pouch, a very big pouch. Okay, so this acid does not allow the food to decay in the stomach. So yes, of course, I'm putting your point also, activating pepsin and of course stops decay of food. Right. So these are some of the functions which generally the acid will perform in the stomach. Now question number 3, what is the function of digestive enzymes? Raise your hands for that. Digestive enzymes. And again, I could see you those 3 kids only. Digestive enzymes. So let me start asking, please, others also. Yeah, Tanishka, good. Try and answer this. Tanishka, try and answer better. Yeah, try to answer this question. That is, what is the function of digestive enzymes?
For breaking down the food.
Yeah. Your voice is not clear, my dear. Well, let me ask Ipsita.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. What is the role of digestive enzymes?
The digestive enzyme in stomach is pepsinogen, which gets activated and converts into pepsin, which further helps in the digestion of protein.
Very good. Now, my general question, what is the role of digestive enzymes if I say? I'm not specifying whether it is stomach or small intestine or mouth. The answer would be, wait, Kushagra would like to answer that?
Ma'am, digestive enzymes break complex food molecules into simpler ones.
Simple. Even if I use this statement that they digest the food, and in digest, whenever I'm using this term digest means breaking down of complex and insoluble food material into simple and soluble. Okay, good. Now the next question, how is the small intestine designed? How is the small
Can I?
intestine designed? Wait. Let me see the raised hand for that.
Ma'am,
How is
repeat the question.
That's question number, you open up page number 101 of your textbook, dear. We are discussing, I wrote on the board, we are discussing those questions only on page number 101. Okay, now I'd like to ask, let me see, I'll be asking somebody else and not that. Manvi. Manvi, how is the small intestine designed? Adosh? Adosh doesn't know the answer to this question. How is the small intestine designed? Manvi?
Ma'am, can I?
Wait. Adosh, try to speak up. I hope you have a mic connected to your system. Maybe he does not have that. Pragati.
Yes,
try
ma'am.
to answer this question. Yes.
Ma'am, the small intestine has millions of finger-like projections called villi. These villi
Yeah.
increase the surface area of efficient food absorption. Within
Correct.
these villi, many blood vessels are present that absorb the digested food and carry it back to the bloodstream. From the bloodstream, the absorbed food is delivered to each and every cell of the body.
Beautifully explained. Very good. That's the right one. Finger-like projections, villi, increasing the absorbed surface area. Digested food is absorbed there. That's the answer to that question. Now we are moving ahead to the next page, that is page number 105. Again, in-text question on page number 105. And the first question, what advantage over an aquatic organism does a terrestrial organism have with regard to obtaining oxygen for respiration? What is the advantage?
Ma'am,
A moment ago we have discussed, wait Sadhna, we have a moment ago discussed in terms of plants. Okay, same is the way. Let me see if I have some other student beyond these 4 kids to whom I can ask. Ishadeep. Manali. Manvi. Atharv. Melvin.
Yes, ma'am.
Try to answer this question.
Simply, it's like air contains about 21% of oxygen, while when we take about in water, it's less than 1%. So that's the reason terrestrial organism is able to get several times more oxygen than aquatic animals.
Good answer. Why you had not raised your hand? Please raise your hand. You want to see, this is just your own class. Try to attempt the answers, and you have explained it completely correct. I'm just going to repeat the answer, that more amount of oxygen is present. More amount of oxygen is present in air. Okay, so they are at advantage. In water, definitely it is in dissolved state, but it's less percentage, right? So that advantage, of course, the terrestrial animals have. Question number 2. What are the different ways in which glucose is oxidized? And for this, of course, I'm not going to ask you here. That is diagram number 6.8. By now, it must have been in your hearts, in your soul, because we have taken up this diagram a number of times in class as well as in practice. So that aerobic and 2 pathways of anaerobic, you are supposed to write in this answer, figure number 6.8. Then next question, how is oxygen and CO2 transported in human beings? That's a good question I would like to ask now. Oxygen and CO2. Parth. Yes, try to answer, Parth. Do you have a mic attached to your system? It's not working. No problem. Let me ask somebody else. By the time you may type out your answer and send. Adoksh can hear me. Adoksh, try to answer this question. Himanshu. Yeah, I can see your raised hands, beta. Kanishka, can you speak up the answer you had written?
Ma'am, this is the process through which living organisms take in oxygen and give out carbon dioxide to release energy. The transport of gas during reception, the transport of gas during both oxygen and carbon dioxide is carried out by the blood cell.
Blood, of course, but we need to be more specific, and for that, on page number 104, last few lines, they are very much written clearly. We have noted down in notes also, but let me repeat that again. No harm in repeating. It's your question number 3. And for oxygen, we are going to take up the name of hemoglobin in RBCs. And for CO2, for carbon dioxide, we are going to give the responsibility to, because we know that CO2 is much soluble in water. Well, oxygen is also soluble in water, but we have a more reliable transport system for that, that is hemoglobin. That has such a great affinity for transportation that it can attach, a single hemoglobin molecule can attach a maximum of 4 oxygen with that. So with that great affinity towards oxygen, it's better to take up hemoglobin and RBCs as a receptor for oxygen and to transport it all over the body. But CO2 travels in the blood. Of course, all of them will be transportation, means it will be transported by blood only. But let's be specific which part of the blood. CO2 is transported in dissolved state in plasma. Water means basically plasma, right? And there too it travels specifically, if you want to be even more specific, that is in the form of bicarbonates it travels. HCO3 ions it travels. And even if you write that much only, dissolved state in plasma. That completes our answer. Next question. How are lungs designed to maximize the area? That's an easy one. How are lungs designed? That answer, I think, I would like to give. Ritika can explain that.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Ritika. Go ahead, explain that.
There are millions of alveoli in the lungs. The presence of millions of alveoli in the lungs provide a very large area for exchange of gases, and the availability of large surface area maximizes the exchange of gases. For example, if all alveoli from the 2 human lungs are unfolded, they would give an area of about 80 square meters, which is nearly the size of a tennis court.
Correct. Vinisha can repeat that. Not exactly the same, but
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Vinisha.
Ma'am, in lungs, a million number of alveoli present, which increase the surface area of lungs.
Correct.
By exchange, the main unit of exchange gases is alveoli only.
Correct, correct. So basically, the main part we are supposed to focus on is the alveoli, the small balloon-like structure. There are millions of them, and they increase the surface area for the exchange of gases in lungs. That's a good answer. So try to raise your hands. Don't hesitate. Once again, I would like to request, it's your own class. Well, now we have the next set of questions on page number
110.
Yeah, very good, Ipsita. 110 and the first question. What are the components of transport system in human beings and what are their functions? Page number 110. And that's the question number 1. And for that, let me see who all have raised their hands to answer this question. The components of transport system. Even if you do not know all of them, you may start off telling me one by one.
Ma'am, can I?
Wait, Sadhna. Ishadeep. Yeah, Vandan has started telling me. Tell me, Vandan. Vandan, first of all, Vandan will say and then Ishadeep will repeat that, okay? Vandan, start off.
Ma'am, the components of transport system are blood and lymph.
Blood and?
Lymph.
Lymph, okay. And what if we say that basically the transport system, yeah, lymph is there, but main transportation happens with the help of blood.
Blood vessel.
Yeah, if you're talking about blood, that means we have these components for the answer. And yes, of course. Anybody else is writing or telling me the answer to this question? Sadhna is all set to shoot all the answers. Good. Very good. But let me see. And let's see there are like 4 of them. Okay. For example, if we write down heart and in the blood vessels, we may mention for the blood vessels also. Blood vessels, they may include arteries, veins, capillaries, and of course, you may mention in here about the lymph. Basically, these we are supposed to write for the transport system. Of course, the heart. And the function of the heart will be to pump the blood. And the function of arteries to transport oxygenated, deoxygenated will be transported with the help of veins, and capillaries will be joining both of them at the tissue level. So that's how we are supposed to write down the answer to this question. Next question is, why is it necessary to separate oxygenated and deoxygenated blood? That means what is the role of having 4-chambered heart in the higher animals like those of aves and mammals? So let's see. Ritika has raised the hand, but good that you know the answer, Ritika. But let me, Ishadeep has not answered me previously, right? Ishadeep,
Yes.
yeah, please try to attempt the answer, beta. It may be wrong, I'll correct you, but try to attempt it. Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, it's necessary to separate oxygenated and deoxygenated blood to contain sufficient supply of oxygen into the blood. This system is essential in the animals that have high energy needs.
Your answer is absolutely right. Try to speak a little louder next time, okay? Yes, it's
Okay,
absolutely right. The system is complex and we need energy, and those energy requirements cannot be fulfilled if the blood keeps on mixing with deoxygenated. So there needs to be a segregation, a septum, a wall to separate oxygenated from deoxygenated. Deoxygenated blood is present on the right side of the heart, and on the left side we have the oxygenated blood. Okay, good answer. Try to raise your hands, everyone out of you, everyone, and I'll be picking up the next child randomly again. Why is it necessary to separate this? We have done. The next question, what are the components of transport system in highly organized plants? The transport system we have asked a moment ago in case of human beings, and now is the case in case of, yeah, Vinisha, I can see Vinisha raising the hand.
Ma'am,
Yes,
xylem and phloem tissue.
Yes, try to answer this.
Ma'am, xylem and phloem tissue.
Xylem and phloem. And of course, Archana. Archana. Archita. Devansh. Anyone out of these three may repeat the answer. Garima? Sakshi? Sara? Adhoksh? Ashish? That's a simple answer to reply. You may not have heard that. And some kids are sending me the typed reply. Maybe they do not have this system of mic at their home. Please try to have one. And yes, of course, all your answers are right. Xylem and phloem. Xylem helps in the transportation of water and minerals, and phloem for the transportation of food material. Correct answer. Next question. How are water and minerals transported in plants? Of course, a moment ago we have covered that happens with the help of xylem and xylem tissue. Food is transported with the help of course, phloem. Okay.
Phloem.
Yeah. So let's move ahead with the last set of questions. That's on page number 112, and then we'll move ahead for exercise questions. Describe the structure and functioning of nephron. A separate, I have dealt a separate lecture on that, wherein we have drawn the diagram of nephron, where in the nephron we have covered. Sadhna, actually the time is up, so I would be going a bit faster now, and we have covered this.
Ma'am, वो project file.
Wait a minute. So this set of questions we are discussing here, and the last exercise questions we'll be dealing in the next lecture. Here in nephron we have covered the diagram as well as the functioning of it. I'm clearing all your doubts in a moment's time, but here this answer will come wherein you are supposed to draw the diagram and write about it. Okay, right from filtration, ultrafiltration, then reabsorption and secretion. And methods used by plant to get rid of the excretory product, that was the yesterday's lesson I have taken up, wherein it has got 3 different ways. Gaseous waste, of course, CO2 and oxygen through stomata, liquid waste through transpiration, and of course the solid waste, it will be depositing in the xylem tissue and the falling leaf and the falling fruits, of course, and gums and resins, and some of them may be released directly into the soil. Amount of urine produced is regulated. If the more amount of liquid is there in the body, water is there in the body, then more urine formation will take place, it will be dilute. If less amount of water is there in the body, then the urine will be concentrated, and less number of times you will be having the urge to urinate. Well, this is up to here, you are supposed to write down the answers at least. The last set of the exercise, of course, I'll be discussing. And with that, we come to the end of today's lecture. Thank you, kids. Stay safe. Happy learning.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.